Okay, gang, so I'm going to do a quick video here on should you do a manual locking hub conversion on a second gen 4Runner. The second gens came with, instead of a manual locking hub, they came with just a flange on here, and that made it so that when you would shift into four-wheel drive inside the cabin with the lever, it would go into four-wheel drive, and when you pulled it out, it would go out of four-wheel drive. So it was kind of a part-time slash full-time four-wheel drive kind of thing. And it also has vacuum actuated things, which we could talk about another time. But for now, should you do a manual hub conversion, and what are the pros and cons? So quickly, what the cons is, the flange is stronger, a bit stronger than a manual locking hub. A manual locking hub has moving parts, moving components that can more likely break than just a hunk of metal that's on there. Other than that, there's really no cons to it. So the pros, we'll go over here now. One, it's not hard to do. You just got to make sure you get the right kind of hubs for it, and you can find that information on forums or just Google it to get the right ones for your model. So this is for second gen 4Runner. This also applies for other Toyotas. Anything in the 80s and 90s that came with a flange, a lot of them you can convert. Third gen 4Runners too, probably some of the Land Cruisers, I'm not totally sure. So right now you can see it's in free, so the wheel just spins, and I'm going to switch it to lock, and so the wheel still spins. So what's the difference? So, and why does a manual hub conversion matter? So let's climb under here and grab my towel here so I don't get too dirty. So right now I have the hubs locked, and sorry for the jittery camera, but for convenience we're just doing the camera freehand right now. So this is your CV shaft right here. Let's see if I can get in there and point to it. Right here, and this is what transmits the power to the four-wheel drive. And usually this goes through, this spline shaft goes through the hub, and that flange is on there. And so we switched it to a manual locking hub. So right now the hub is locked, so when I turn the tire, that CV shaft turns, which in turn turns all the gears and bearings and everything inside the differential. And then there's the shaft that goes out the other side for the other side, which also turns the drive shaft, which is right here. So when both hubs are locked in, the drive shaft can turn too. So when I unlock the hubs, and I'll do that, give it a quick turn to free, and now you can see I'm turning the tire, and that shaft is not turning. Right? So now all of my drive lane is completely disconnected. So let's have a quick chat as to why that matters. So now you saw that when you disconnect or turn the hub to free, your drive line isn't turning. So when the tires are on the ground and you're driving with the factory flange on there, a lot of guys make the change because they think it improves fuel economy, and it might. I really didn't pay that much attention to that, but I know on interstates, if I'm traveling around 65, 70 miles an hour on flat interstates, not hills, I get about 22 miles to the gallon in a 92 4Runner. So yeah, figure out if you're getting that. Maybe that might be a thing to change, but I don't know. I don't think it's that big a deal. Really, for me, the benefits are, number one, I unlock the hubs so that if I have the flange on there and I'm driving around, all that drive system is still spinning every mile I drive, whether it's on road, off road, on the highways, on the streets, it's all spinning. So it's wear and tear, right? If I unlock that stuff, then none of that stuff is turning. It's just along for the ride. So I'm not wearing out anything. So it defers maintenance down the road. It defers breaking parts. It defers worn out CV joints, or having to change CV boots, that kind of stuff. So you do have to remember to put it in four-wheel drive once in a while and lock the hubs and grease everything up, because stuff just sitting there, the seals will start to dry out. So if you don't go off-road that often, you could, you know, lock those things in when it's raining, in the snow, find a dirt trail, drive around with it all locked up. Keep those seals in good shape, keep everything lubed and greased. But yeah, so you unlock the hubs, all the front wheel drive, all for the four-wheel drive for the front axle is all just along for the ride. It's just sitting there now. Nothing's turning, nothing's getting worn out, even though I'm not using it. I have no reason to be in four-wheel drive. I'm just on the streets. It's still getting worn out. So if I unlock the hubs, I'm saving myself that. So lower cost of maintenance, right? Lower headaches. You know, having to pull all that apart just to change CV boots is a pain in the butt. And paying somebody to do that is not cheap. So it's labor, you know. So one, it's just saving me a bunch of headaches. Number two is if I am off-roading, typically if something in four-wheel drive breaks, it's going to be in the front, especially on an independent front suspension. You know, breaking CV shafts or CV joints, those kind of things are going to be the earliest to go. Even on a solid axle, you know, you still have to, compared to a back axle, solid axle, you still have all the components for steering and everything, so you have extra joints, extra bearings. Even on solid axle, doing the conversion is worth it, because here's why. If I do break something on the trail, on the front, with the flange in there, I have to repair that part because it's locked in. And if I'm driving, if the CV joint or CV axle breaks, that's just going to be flopping around there. You're not going to be able to move. With the way I have it, you could just unlock the hub, zip tie up whatever's broken, and just move on the way. It'll just be along for the ride. So you can still get out in two-wheel drive. You know, have some traction boards with you, and a winch or whatever, and you can probably make it, you know, and get to drive out and not have to worry about having those spare parts with you, or, you know, what's going to happen if I don't have them with me, and the tools and all that other stuff. So still bring tools and parts, but if you want, you know, definitely tools. Yeah, it's just one less worry to have, because I can still get out in two-wheel drive. Conversely, if something in the rear breaks, you know, I drop a drive shaft in the back, I can tie that up, lock in the hubs, and drive out in front wheel drive too. So it just gives me some versatility for anything that I might face. It just gives that extra peace of mind. The third reason is, like I said, fuel economy. I'm not really convinced. It might help a little bit, but I wouldn't make that the prime motivation. I think the other reasons are probably the better reason to do it. So yep, sorry for the kids screaming and stuff. It's what happens when you live in a neighborhood. I think that about covers it. Just gives you flexibility, options if something breaks, deferred maintenance, because you're not wearing out the parts as much. So, you know, fluid changes, all that stuff, you just don't have to do as often. And, you know, the boots and CV joints are just going to last a lot longer. The bearings, you know, the carrier bearings, all that kind of stuff, because there's no reason to be turning all that stuff when you're on the street. It just doesn't need to happen. Oh, the last downside is you have to get out and lock and unlock the hubs when you want to use four-wheel drive. So, you know, if you want to stay comfy cozy in the cabin, then it's not for you. But it's really, you know, you get to the trailhead, you just get out and lock the hubs in, and then you're driving around just like it would have been from the factory anyway. So, you know, then you get to the end of the trail, you unlock the hubs. It's not that big of a deal. It takes a minute, so if that. So yeah, all right, thank you guys for watching. I hope that helps. Leave any questions or comments below. I try to answer most of them. I try to get on there and answer questions maybe around once a week or so I don't have to spend all my time doing it. I hope this was helpful in your consideration if you want to go through the effort to get those hubs changed. It's not that hard of a project. I did it myself. It's not very difficult. So, and there's instructions on forums and things like that. So if I find a good source, I'll look around. If I find a good source for hubs, I'll put it in the description below. But generally eBay, maybe even Amazon these days. Look on forums in the buy-sell section, junkyards, stuff like that. So again, there's a couple different designs of old Toyota hubs, so make sure you get the right ones that'll fit on the independent front suspension. So those will typically come off the later 80s 4Runners and pickups and stuff like that. So all right, Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate you very much, and see you on the next video. Take care.